Salutations everyone, this is Razor giving you guys another Overwatch video here talking about the dreaded SR. Those of us that have been stuck in ELO hell or just haven't been able to progress since the game started know exactly what I'm talking about. And even if you're new, you might have noticed some odd things about how the seasonal ranking works in Overwatch. No matter what level you are or what character you play, there are some odd things and a lot of problems with how SR works in this game. Now, the mathematical formula that is used in a computer somewhere to figure out your SR and to start off with and how much you lose and how much you gain, no one really knows how that works. I don't even think there is one individual that could tell you the exact math that goes into it. There is obviously some sort of equation. It's not random. It's some sort of automated process. And it has some problems because it's not straightforward. When it comes to rankings, that is one of the things that should be relatively straightforward. I can understand not being able to tell how the play of the game picker system works because that has a lot of things that go into it. If you get a double environmental kill, that's automatically play of the game. If you get a quad mercy res or a penta mercy res, that's automatically going to be play of the game. If you get a sharpshooter with Widow, that means you got 2 long shots and somehow, you know, gets higher up on the echelon than most things that a Pharah can do. You know, there's a lot of weird things with play of the game, but like that's fine. We don't need to know how that works. But when it comes to your rank, that is something that you should know how it works at, you know, at the basic level. But unfortunately, you know, like in some games where you lose, you go up X amount, and if you win, you go up X amount, and it's going to be the same. If you, let's say you win, you gain 30 SR. If you lose 30 SR. That makes sense, you know, because a win and a loss should be the same. But what Overwatch did, it sounds like it was a good idea. It's coming from a good place. You know, the Overwatch team isn't trying to make, you know, broken aspects to their game that they know is really good and has a lot of people questioning things about it. So with the SR system, it isn't you go up or you go down, you know, a set mark. There is the character that you play in the game has a humongous factor in how much you go up and down. And the way that you perform on your team also has a factor. It's not just about winning or losing, it's the stats that you gain. So, you know, ideally you can understand where they're coming from at this point. So let's say you lose, but it's totally not your fault. You were carrying your team. You have 5 gold medals. You know, you were killing it, and you lost because your team was fucking around. They were committing suicide, or they were just picking all troll picks and just not doing their job. No one picked healer, no one picked tank, you know, something like that. But you were doing your darndest. So, you know, you would think that person that performs that well on the losing team doesn't deserve to lose as much SR. Because, you know, they did fairly well, it wasn't really their fault, and they performed at a high level. But it doesn't quite work that way. Ideally, it seems like that's how the system is wanting to be implemented, but that really isn't how it works. So, you know, if you were, you know, a star soldier and you got 5 golds and you got so many, you know, got a couple of ult wipes and you were able to contest the point all by yourself for so long and you lost, you think, you know, you don't deserve to lose as much SR. So that has a, you know, how you individually perform does impact how much SR you will lose or gain in a loss. Ideally, if you have more to do with your win, or, you know, it's how your team was performing, then you'll lose less or gain more. And if you had more to do with why your team lost or less to do with how your team won, you would lose more or gain less. But that isn't exactly how it works. And the character that you choose has a lot to do with that. For instance, historically, if you play DPS, you will gain more SR regardless of how you perform than people who play support or tank. So that incentivizes DPS play. If you play only one role, then your SR will go down less or go up more. So this incentivizes not switching. Say you have too many DPSs, or you have just a bad comp. Instead of, if you switch, that will hurt your SR more, even though it could help your team win, turn a loss into a win, and end up getting more SR in the long run, or just make things more competitive and more fun, which is, what's the competitive mode should be all about, being competitive and having fun doing it. Even in competitive games that I lose, if it's very close, I'm not mad about it, because we obviously were in it to win it. We had, a decent comparable to what the enemy team had in order to make things so close. So when I lose in competitive games, but they're super close, I can't be mad, because it was fun, it was close, it was competitive, and that's what the game mode is all about. But the way the SR works incentivizes people to only play me DPS, which was always going to be a problem regardless, because people think that their TPS play is God, and we went over this in the last, and they think it's more fun or to play DPS because of certain characters, or they feel like they'll get more frags, but ends up hurting the team. I mean, you can get gold limbs as Lucio if you know what you're doing, or Zarya or whatever. People think that playing healer or tank isn't as fun. It's like playing Lucio and Zenyatta and Reinhardt could be tons of fun. I mean, if you could play McCree really badly and not have any fun at all, which is what I feel pretty much every McCree player has, because I've never seen a McCree player do well in my life, even myself. So I mean, he is very difficult to play. I'm not saying he's like a bad character or anything, but a lot of that plays into how team comp is built in your teams, is because of SR has a big influence, and people kind of know the tricks of the trade and how SR works. So you stick to a DPS, or you stick to one character, and you'll gain more or you'll lose less. So this promotes one-tricking. And one-tricking is one of the biggest problems with Overwatch. It kind of, plays a lot into the DPS problem that we went over in the last video. One-tricking incentivizes people to only be able to play one character, and if you can only play one character, then you're not going to be good at the game. You're not going to be helping your team, and you're not going to be very useful in a lot of places. Not as many people are one-tricking Lucio as they're one-tricking Hanzo, or they're one-tricking Junkrat or Doomfist, or I know Junkrat's kind of like in the meta nowadays, but he wasn't last season. He was definitely one of the most played characters. It was Junkrat, McCree all day, every day. Just because of the popularity of those characters and the way that DPS players tend to think, that's not going to help when you have 5 people who one-trick DPS and you have one person who's one-tricking Mercy. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. So you have 3 people who one-trick Mercy, which is very, very common and happens. Then all of a sudden you have 2 people who have to pick characters that they don't necessarily know how to play very well, because they think, oh, maining is the way to go. This game's all about maining, when it's not. It's not at all. It's a hero shooter, and you could switch between your deaths. So that is a problem that incentivizes people to throw, to lose, and to just play in a really bad comp. And Mercy herself was a big enough problem as she was, with how people play her, how res works, and things like that, and the lack of focus fire with communication at lower levels, or just, skill and aim at lower levels. Mercy can become a huge problem, but Mercy is even more of a problem at every single level because of the Mercy SR issue. If you played Mercy for a long time, and if you lost, your SR would not go down nearly as much as if you played another character. And if you won with Mercy, your SR would go higher than any other character. So with Mercy always gained more than she lost, what we saw was a plethora of Mercy mains, because people care more about rank than they do about winning. And I know that sounds contrary, but because of the way the SR system works, these two ideas were in conflict with each other. That's why you see time and time again people that are playing in Masters or Grandmasters, and they have this Mercy on their team that has like a 30 or 20% win rate, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. They should be able to win more of their games if they're at these high levels, but because they keep gaining more SR than they could possibly lose, or it's like impossible for you to play 10 games as Mercy and lose SR, you'll always be gaining SR, and if you play enough time, you'll get to the higher echelons of play if you only play me Mercy. So A, that incentivizes people to play a character like Mercy that maybe they don't know how to play, and or really maximize the potential of that character, or play Mercy in a situation where it's not so good for her because you already have 2 good healers, or they're counting you with a Widow or a really good McCree or a Soldier or something like that, or that Mercy is just dying all the time and clearly need a switch. That it wasn't happening because people cared more about their SR and getting that fancy shiny thing next to their name in the next game. So that became a problem because of all these Mercy mains out there. And the SR system is also plagued by the gold gun issue, and Jeff Kaplan admitted that putting rewards in competitive was a bad choice because it makes bad players who don't care about winning, puts them in a competitive just so they can get those cool shiny gold weapons. And they don't care about winning as much because, eventually they'll gain enough SR. And if they play 2 full seasons, even at mediocre play, they'll end up getting a gold gun, which is bad for the competitive environment because they aren't there for the right reasons and won't try to win nearly as much. So there's a lot of things that go into SR. We don't know how it works. If you're a flex player, gaining SR will hurt you. And right now in my current season, I have the exact amount of wins and losses, and I'm 200 SR below where I started in the season. So Overwatch team, please let me know how that is supposed to make sense, because it really doesn't. It is an issue. If you played the game from the start all by yourself, you're going to be stuck in a low ELO because you aren't playing with people, you aren't going to have the communication, you aren't going to have people making the right team compositions, and gaining SR isn't going to be nearly as easy as all those people with their Smurf accounts doing their Bronze to Masters challenge, which is just throwing games and is toxic to the environment. It is just the part of the problem when it comes to, the SR issue. So there's a lot of things at play here that are detrimental to how a simple SR system should work to make things easy to decipher and understand and help incentivize playing to win. And all of these factors are playing against that. And that's a shame, and it should be fixed. But the hopes are not high a year later that these issues will be addressed.